Welcome to the Relocated South African, the show for navigating immigration from South Africa for a better future. I'm your host, Jan Hugo from Lagos in Portugal. Check out our website, www.therelocatedsoutafrican.com. It contains a whole lot of useful information and details of all episodes to date. If you want to interact with us or comment on our discussions or even participate in an interview, please contact me on jan@therelocatedsoutafrican.com. Also, if you like our content, why not subscribe on your favorite platform? Today, I welcome from Perth in Australia, Reeva Cutting. Welcome, Reeva.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Reeva is a South African expat who has immigrated 3 times. She's a migration and travel blogger behind Proudly South African in Perth, where she shares practical advice on moving to, settling in and exploring Australia. But wait, there's more. I will let Reeva fill us in on more of the details of what else she's involved in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes, so my blog is kind of like a hobby of mine that I started just over 10 years ago now. So it's been going for quite a while. I started it because I recently started working in the digital marketing space, and I got quite involved in blogging for clients. And then I attended a one-day workshop about blogging, and I was really inspired to start my own blog. And I thought, what do I know best? Moving countries 3 times, setting up a Facebook group for supporting South Africans in Perth and WA. And I thought, what better way to kind of share my knowledge with others who are doing the same thing. It was back in 2013 when we moved, before Facebook groups really were taking off, and the online space has changed so much since I started. But I really enjoy supporting other South Africans who are either in the process of moving, thinking about moving, or already here and looking at settling and exploring.
Awesome. Just a off-the-cuff question, blogging versus podcasts. I mean, there are a gazillion podcasts and a gazillion blogs. Are they competing, or?
I think there's space for both. Some people enjoy reading content. Some people enjoy listening to content. Some people like both. I've toyed with the idea of starting a podcast, but I'm sure, as you know, it's quite a lot of work, and all the editing behind the scenes. It's quite time consuming, and having 3 jobs already, I don't feel like I can move into that space. So I'm going to leave that to you. And then I like writing. So writing is where I'm happiest.
Okay, cool. So maybe let's just take a step back. Can you tell us where you're from, school, and just a bit about the immigration journey to find yourself in Australia now?
Yeah, I always say I took the long way around to Australia. Grew up in Durban, lived a few years in Johannesburg, and then moved to Cape Town for my last 2 years of school and for university. And once my uni was over, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do or how I wanted to, move into a career. And my mum had just recently relocated to France, so I took the opportunity to move there, experience a bit of life in Europe. And after a few months, she then relocated to the UK, and I had a choice, either go back to South Africa or move with her to the UK. And I chose going to the UK. We qualified for ancestral. She had a British passport and I qualified for an ancestral visa. So it was kind of an easy way in at the time to start a new life abroad and kind of see what Europe had to offer. And after 10 years in the UK, moved over to Perth. We've been here ever since. So yeah, coming up for 13 years next year. So I've definitely come a very long route from South Africa to Australia.
Absolutely. And in terms of, deciding to stay in Australia versus life in Europe, what kind of prompted that? Is it the weather, the people?
The main thing that prompted it would have been when I had my son. So we were, I think he was about 18 months when we first toyed with the idea of moving to Australia. And we were actually looking at moving to Ireland because my mum lived in Ireland at the time and we were based in England, and we were traveling a fair bit to see her backwards and forwards. And we wanted a bit more of like her support when my son was growing up. And then we sat down one day and we said, why are we moving somewhere where the weather is worse than where we are now? Where's sunny and warm? And, everybody thinks of Australia. Neither of us had ever been. So my husband's English, and he'd never been to Australia either. So it was a bit of a off-the-cuff remark. I said to him, would you ever consider moving to Australia? And he said yes, which really surprised me. And we took about 6 to 8 months to decide whether we actually really wanted to do it or if it was just, a joke or a dream. Once we started the application process, it only took 6 months for our visa to be granted. So it was quite a surprise for us. And then we had to be like, okay, we've got 12 months to actually pack up our whole lives and move. So my son was about just before he turned 3, we moved over here. And I think he was the big factor in a better life for him, the kind of lifestyle that I grew up with. Everybody said to me, if you move to Perth, it's like Durban 30 years ago. And I thought if I had the opportunity to give my child the kind of childhood that I had, I would be silly not to try and take that up.
Yeah, I can totally understand. I mean, you mentioned something, the support from a mother. And that's a line that draws through every conversation I have is people find it very difficult without parents. So you moved with a 3-year-old. How did you cope in Oz without the mother?
It was quite tricky. I mean, we didn't have her close by already in the UK. My husband's family were about a 45-minute drive from us. So where we lived, we didn't have any kind of immediate family support anyway. I think for people who've got family 5 minutes down the road or even next door, it's a real shock to the system to have to move to a place where you have literally nobody that you know or trust to help you with your kids, and just general kind of life challenges that get thrown at you. I was quite lucky. My mum does visit us fairly regularly, and she actually came with us when we emigrated, and she stayed with us for the first 3 weeks and helped, look after my son while we were out looking at houses and job hunting and just familiarizing ourselves with the areas. So that we're really lucky to have that. Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not. Yeah, I think the difficulty comes when the kids have issues. We have our daughter in Ireland, and it's fairly close to Portugal, but it gets very tough when there are issues. You have to work. They have to work, and they don't have the kind of support that they would have had back home. So yeah, I fully understand what you're saying. Once, just moving on, I know you, in another podcast, you discuss mental health challenges. And as a business owner, after being fired early in your career, would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that was a pretty stressful time. We bought a house not like less than a year before, and ended up getting fired. And I'd been toying with the idea for a while of going off on my own and being a freelancer. I personally feel that's part of why I got fired. I think she got wind of that and didn't like what she was kind of hearing, but I thought it's now or never. So I dug in. I started a business, got my first few clients at a ridiculously cheap rate. I look back now and think I was insane charging so little, but it got me my first few clients. And within 6 months, I kind of replaced the part-time income that I was earning before. And obviously now I work part-time and pretty much earn a full-time income between my 3 roles. So between the digital marketing that I do for Cutting-Edge Digital, with Rand Rescue, helping South Africans move their retirement funds and cash abroad. And then the blog makes a very small amount of money. I don't really kind of promote that so much, but it does have a bit of income every now and then. So between the 3, I've got a nice balance of work that I enjoy. I'm quite lucky that way.
Excellent. And in terms of managing time with having a family and being involved in 3 jobs and also...
Yeah. Not easy. The best description I ever heard that I always refer to, as my friend says, it's not so much like having a balance. It's more like a pendulum. Sometimes the pendulum swings more in favor of family and rest and relaxation, and sometimes it just swings completely to work, and it's just kind of alternating between the 2 constantly.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's very true. And family in South Africa, do you still have a lot of family?
Yeah, my dad still lives there. My dad and my stepmom, they're still based in KZN, and I've got some stepsisters in the Cape, but otherwise the rest of my family is in Europe, in the UK and Ireland.
Okay, and do you still go back to South Africa or not really?
I've only been back twice since we left. Not, it's expensive. When there's 3 of us to go. I have brought my dad out to Australia once. He doesn't have a passport at the moment, and that's a whole other problem. So I would prefer to bring them out here, because I think when they're here, they absolutely love the lifestyle and the freedom that it affords them. They can really relax when they're out here. So Dad, if you're listening, please get a passport.
It's easy. You can go to the bank now.
Oh, no, it's too complicated. He's Greek. He doesn't have he's not South African citizen. And to get a Greek passport is pretty much impossible. I need to look back into it. It's really ridiculous, the hoops you have to jump through to get one of them.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's really interesting. So I know you've been in Australia for pretty much 12 years and helping people to immigrate. Do you think it's become more difficult to get into Australia?
That's a good question. I don't think it's become more difficult administration-wise. I think it's probably got a lot more expensive than it used to be, and that's a challenge for anybody who's paying visa costs and agent costs and, medical costs in dollar amounts when you're earning rands. That is a real challenge. I know within a couple of years of us moving to Australia, they pretty much doubled the visa price for the visa that we got. And I thought even earning pounds, we probably wouldn't have been able to afford to pay the costs as they were increased to life. So I think the biggest challenge is cost and then also timeline. Some visas take years to be granted and you're just kind of sitting in limbo the whole time. So the mental and emotional stress that comes with that it can be really difficult to deal with.
And what you do is, because my understanding is that in Australia, there's quite a process to go through and you need to score certain points in order to get accepted. And a lot of people pay the cost but they're not really ever going to make it. Is that part of the process that you help people with?
I'll preface this by saying I'm not an agent, so this isn't any sort of official comment. But depends. There's over 200 different visa types that you can apply for in Australia. So it's a bit of a minefield as to who qualifies for what. So I'd always say anyone who's looking, consult an agent as your first port of call. They're the best placed people to say, yes, you could qualify and these are your options, or unfortunately dash your dreams and say, there is really nothing you qualify for at the moment. If you retrained in these skills, these are something, that could be a pathway for you to get into Australia and get a second opinion as well, because, some agents specialize in different areas. And, if you are a teacher or in the medical fields or in construction, there are people who are better placed to recognize your skills and say, well, that really applies to this visa. This is your route in.
Okay, I'm with you. So you mentioned Rand Rescue. That's a business that helps people with transferring money across?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started working with them in 26. So the same year that I got fired, I was offered the opportunity to work as a business development manager for Rand Rescue. And I always think if I'd had my part-time job, I wouldn't have had the time to take that on. So I think the world works the way it's meant to work. And that opportunity came to me at a time when I could take it on. So yeah, I've been working with them for, 9 years.
Are they South African-based business or Australia-based?
Yeah, we have offices in South Africa. The head office is in New Zealand. And then obviously you've got the team. I'm in Australia. We've got people based in the UK, the US, and most of the admin processing team are South Africa and New Zealand.
Okay. And it's always a question for me. What would you say is the biggest mistake people make financially when they move?
That's a really good question. From a personal point of view, I'd say not researching costs enough and knowing exactly what you're walking into. And just constantly worrying about costs versus rands instead of the currency that you're now dealing with. If you have a job and you have an income, you need to think in that income, because it's very depressing going into the shops and converting a $3 item to a 35 Rand item, and you kind of think, I can't pay that, but it is what it is. But doing the research before you move or while you're in the process of moving and knowing what to expect really can take the edge off the shop when you arrive in Australia and just discover how much everything costs, especially these days with the cost of living crisis that's just happening everywhere.
We find it's still, we've been here 5 years in Europe now, and every time somebody comes to visit and you go out for a coffee and it costs €1.50 and they say, well, that's a lot of rands. And you say, well, that's what it is. And that's a cheap coffee. You can easily pay $3.50 for a coffee.
Yeah. Send them to Australia. We're paying $6, $7 for a coffee these days. It's getting out of control.
Crazy. But I think I've heard this in places like Dubai, and, a lot of people cash in their pension. They take it across to help them, not realizing that that's kind of, depending how long they've worked, like 10 years of their life that they've stuck into that pension. That pension now becomes something that they have to live off, buy whatever they need in that side. And then people go on a bit of a spending spree and they overcommit themselves. Do you think that happens as well?
I'd say some people do that. I think some people use their pensions to invest in a property when they move over here. Obviously, property prices are quite expensive, especially when you're converting the rand value of your house to a dollar value of a house here. So, I mean, it's who's it for me to judge how people want to spend their money. But I think having a good financial advisor as well is a really smart move when you move countries, because, if you are withdrawing big lump sums like that or moving over proceeds of a house sale in South Africa, knowing how to use that best to, minimize your tax and maximize kind of any kind of return on that money. It's well worth consult with somebody who can advise you on that.
One thing that comes up a lot as well is furniture. Oh my word, we made the mistake, so we learned the hard way to not ship furniture. Would you agree with that?
Obviously, destination dependent. I think moving to Europe, where you might be living in an apartment on the 4th floor that has no lift, you don't want to be taking your big fancy sofas all the way over there. I'm quite lucky. I moved quite a lot as a child and as an adult, so we've never really managed to accumulate too much stuff. And when we were deciding what to ship or what to keep, we kind of kept a few key big pieces, but we sold the rest and then just shipped boxes of kind of key items that we wouldn't have to then spend money replacing when we got here. So it's always a bit of a personal preference. But yeah, there's a lot of posts on Facebook groups of, my furniture has arrived and the dining table won't fit through the door. Who wants it? Just be aware, if you have super big furniture, like some South Africans do, it may not fit in your new house.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. You currently, I mean, you obviously write about road trips and the environment where you live. And do you have any plans to expand beyond Perth?
Well, obviously Perth is what I know best based here, and I always think you should write about what you know. So a lot of my content will be WA related. I do have some other stuff on there about, the first time I went to Bali, I shared about that. But yeah, Perth is my home. I love it. And I love sharing all the little hidden gems that I kind of find along the way. And I've had people comment as well that they do love it when I share a random cafe or restaurant that I've come across, even if it's not South African related. It gives them something else to go and hunt out and enjoy themselves.
And do you get questions from people, why Perth over Sydney or Melbourne or Gold Coast or whatever?
So for us, it was an easy decision. We didn't want to move anywhere with dodgy weather, so that ruled out Melbourne and Sydney for us. And I didn't want a big city feel. We lived in the countryside in the UK, and I didn't want to move to a big city. London, 3 or 4 days in London was fine for me. So I couldn't see us living there. So the main options for us were Perth, Adelaide, and Brisbane, mostly weather related and size related. And we ended up on Perth because we came on a skilled visa for my husband's skills, and we got extra points for WA. So There was a lot of work opportunity in WA at the time that we moved as well. So that kind of informed our decision. We went where the jobs were, essentially.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Another question, 15, you wrote quite an interesting emotional article in Biz News about South Africa expat bashing. Do you still feel...
At the time that I wrote that, there was just so many articles flying around just telling expats to keep their mouth shut about South Africa. We weren't allowed to comment. We weren't allowed to say anything, good or bad. And I just was a bit tired of being told what I could and couldn't say about my home country. Just because I've emigrated doesn't mean I've cut all my emotional ties with the place. We still have family living there. We still have friends living there who have to deal with the daily challenges that life in South Africa throw at them. So why aren't we allowed an opinion? Yes, I agree that the ones who just go and slag the place off the whole time and just say mean, nasty things, but there's plenty of us that still have a lot of passion for that country and a lot of hope for it. And I don't think that'll ever change. So I just wanted to get something out there to say, hey, we're not all the same. Most of us do love the country. Just because we left doesn't mean we don't care.
I think that's wonderful. It was very interesting. I did an interview, and it will come out with a guy who's a filmmaker in America, South African guy. And he made a movie that's on Amazon Prime called The Journey Home. I don't know if you've seen it, where they specifically, it's really worth a watch. And they talk to South African kids, his kids, Afrikaans kids that moved to America, and parents and people that about their experiences. And one of the comments somebody made, which I thought was amazing, he said, I feel a lot more South African now that I live in America than I ever felt in South Africa. And isn't that true in a way?
Makes sense. It absolutely does. I think being outside of everything you know, kind of, even if you don't want to admit it, you do seek out other South Africans and those connections with people that just have some sort of common bond. Like, we're not all the same. You're not always going to get on with every South African just because they're South African, but it does give you that real sense of Ubuntu, which I don't think ever goes away for any South African.
I agree with that. I think that's very true. So what would you say is the most difficult thing that South Africans battle with when they get to Australia?
I guess it depends. I'd say probably support if they're moving without any family or friends or anyone on the ground that they're arriving to. I think a lot of them struggle work-wise, especially ones who can't get jobs at the same level or at a level that they expect to walk into. There's very much a culture of you work your way up here, and I believe it's becoming the same in the UK. There's no just walking into a high-paid, high-power kind of role just because you had one before. I don't really agree with it. I think if people have got the experience, they should be able to get those kind of roles. I know when I moved here, I was a business systems analyst in the UK for 8 years, and I couldn't even get an interview because I had no WA experience. That was kind of the thing back then. And I think that's expanded to quite a lot of industries now. It is a real challenge finding work. So being prepared to take that little step down or complete career shift, depending on what visa you've come from and what your kind of restrictions are with what you need to work as. Just being flexible. That's the biggest thing I can say for anyone immigrating. Any aspect of your life, be prepared to change your plan, to turn things on their heads if they need to be, to make a success of what you've committed yourself to.
Absolutely. And do you come across people, when it gets tough, that are looking over their shoulder and say, oh, I'll rather go back, I'd rather take what I know. And my sense is that's a really bad attitude to have when you leave. You should go and make it work.
I think that's the thing. I think it depends very much on the attitude that you come with. If you come with I'll see how it goes, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go back, I don't think you can ever really commit to the journey ahead. You've always got that out clause just waiting to be activated. If you come with a deadline, a finite amount of money, and a plan of what you ought to make work, you make it work. Somehow the pieces will fall into place. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be tough. But my biggest advice would be, if you're coming with a partner or as a family, you're not allowed to have breakdowns on the same day as your partner. You can have one on the one day and they can have one on the other day, and you're there to support them and they're there to support you, because if you both break down on the same day, it's not going to be a fun day for either of you.
No, that is so true. Yeah, I've always said that when you decide to leave, make sure you're on the same page, because if both partners don't have the same belief in leaving, it is going to be a nightmare, because it will get difficult. This is tough.
Yeah. That's why I wasn't sure my husband was even serious when I asked him. That's why it took us a few months. I was like, are you sure you want to move to Australia? He had lived in the same house nearly his whole life. Knew everything, lived in a bubble, and I was like, are you sure? Are you sure you can move to the other side of the world? Never been there, don't know anyone. Just like, are you sure?
Yeah, I can imagine. Reeva, and if you think about South Africa, what do you miss most about South Africa, living in Perth now?
Gosh, besides the obvious family and friends that we leave behind, one of the things I miss the most is the storms that we used to get in Joburg and Durban, just the smell of the rain and the storm, watching the lightning outside. It's all the natural wonders that we miss. I was privileged enough to live in Cape Town, look out my window and see the mountain every day. Like, that was just magic. Perth is so flat. There's nothing to see here. We have the hills. They're not really hills. Sometimes your ears pop when you drive up them. That's about it. But yeah, the natural beauty of South Africa, I think, is pretty hard to beat.
That was also in that movie. If you get to see it, one person talked about the thunderstorms and the smell after the thunderstorm. And then people mentioned the silence, the quietness sometimes when you're out in the countryside in South Africa. But I guess that's the same in Australia. But yeah, there are things that we do miss. There are things that I don't miss, like car guards and Hadidas.
You see, we have the Australian version of the Hadidas. We have the ravens here and the crows. Oh my goodness, they make the most awful noise. I actually need to make a video comparing the two. I think it always plays on my mind that they're just interchangeable.
Fortunately, we don't have them here, but yeah, those Hadidas. And the Parktown prawns in Joburg were a nightmare.
They're awful. I tell people about them and they just don't believe me. I think I'm making it up, but yes. I had one inside my 4 months. I put my dress on and as I went to zip up my uniform, I could feel it crawling up.
Oh, no, that's horrible. And if you think about personally, do you have any regrets about your journey to where you are today?
I don't think I've got regrets. I think every decision you make is the best decision you think at the time. And sometimes if you look back too much and go, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that, you only know that now because of hindsight. So I'm a firm believer in if you make that decision at that time, it's because you thought it was the best decision then, and you just move on from that and try and make decisions as best you think as you go on. Regret leaving South Africa. I don't regret leaving the UK. I can't see myself ever leaving Perth. We're really settled here. I love the lifestyle. We're lucky enough to have, good incomes that we can afford the life that we want. I have 2 horses. Do not recommend that for anyone who has any sort of budget and wants to go on holiday. But yeah, we're in a position where, we've chosen to do this and we can. So no regrets here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I regret having 2 horses. I probably should have just had one. My son wanted another one, and I was like, sure.
I had a client who always said, don't invest in anything that eats while you sleep. So maybe a horse is one of them.
I wish somebody had told me that, because, horses are 20 hours a day. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, anyway, no, that's awesome. I think one's got to just back yourself and back your decisions, because you make those decisions with the best information at the time. And that's it. And Reeva, if somebody has to ask you or listen to the podcast now and they're thinking about immigrating, what advice would you give a person who's kind of on the line, not sure what they should do?
I would say be sure and be committed. If you want to move to Australia or anywhere in the world, if you want to leave wherever you're living and relocate somewhere else, commit to it. And don't have, like you say, that option of if it doesn't work, I'll go home. Because I don't think you will ever really be fully present in the journey that you're on if you've always got that little voice in the back of your head saying it's okay if this doesn't work out. Have no plan B. Just have a plan A and stick with it, and it'll come to fruition. When we moved over, we had 3 months worth of cash to support us. So within 3 months, we had to find jobs, find a rental, get my son into some sort of daycare if I was working. And it literally all came together in the last week before our holiday accommodation came to an end. It was touch and go right to but it worked out. And I don't know how, I don't know why. I always knew it would. I did worry in that 3 months that it was, cutting a bit fine, but it all worked out in the end. So have that kind of confidence in yourself and the process that you can make it work.
Excellent. And just a question on your son. Does he see himself completely Australian? I mean, he wasn't really...
Quite funny for us. He was obviously born in England. I'm South African, my husband's English. Then we moved here when he was 3. So for a long time, he was like, I'm Australian. I've lived in Australia. I'm Australian. And then he discovered football, soccer. And now he is English. And he watches cricket. Because of the cricket and the football, he's English. He's not Australian. He has both passports, but he seems himself more English than Australian.
Okay, but not South African at all.
No, unfortunately not. He's got a bit of South African in there. Every now and then it comes out. But yeah, he's like a carbon copy of my husband, so more English than anything.
Excellent. Wow, thank you so much, Reeva. I really enjoyed our chat. And I mean, obviously where can people get hold of you and read your blog and so on?
So my blog is proudlysouthafricaninperth.com. I've obviously got social media. I've got Facebook and Instagram with the same name as well. If there's any questions about Rand Rescue or moving your money over, that's randrescue.com. Just, find me on Facebook. That's probably the easiest way to find my page. And I have a group as well. If you are a South African who's in WA, who's looking for local support, I have a group that's Proudly South African in Perth, and WA is the group name. Okay,
excellent. So we'll put all those details on the show notes with the episode as well, so that people can contact you if they want to. Yeah, it sounds like really interesting. I've enjoyed reading some of the stuff. I'm obviously not in Australia, but I mean, it's just really interesting to see what you do and that they're enjoying life there and making the best of it. Really positive. Well done.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that. So if you enjoyed my discussion with Reeva and would like to hear more about experiences of South Africans who have left South Africa, why not subscribe on your favorite platform? If you would like to share your own story, contact me on jan@relocatedSouthAfrican.com. Until next time.